On December 29, 2022, longtime Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was sworn into the position once again after a brief hiatus. Joining his new government were several far-right elements, including a convicted terrorist. This new government is the furthest right-leaning government that Israel has ever seen. This has significant implications both within Israel and outside of Israel. What are those implications? How did this government ascend to power in a country with a strong left-wing tradition? This new government did not arise in a vacuum. In fact, the new Israeli government is simply a culmination of the rightward shift that the country has been experiencing over the last 4 decades. In 1977, the right-wing Likud party had wrested control from the left in Israel for the first time in the country's history. The newly elected Prime Minister Menachem Begin ran on a campaign of building bridges between the Ashkenazi Jewish establishment and the economically disadvantaged Mizrahi Jews of North Africa and the Middle East who were flooding into Israel. Thus, Mizrahi loyalty to the right was secured. It is worth noting that Mizrahi Jews make up the majority of Israel's Jewish population today. Meanwhile, Ashkenazi Jewish voters in Israel tend to be more secular and left-leaning. In contrast, Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews tend to be more observant than their Ashkenazi counterparts. Another source of controversy within Israel is the role of the Haredi Jews or ultra-Orthodox Jews within Israeli society. The Haredim are exempt from military service and are less economically productive than their secular counterparts. However, they still exercise political sway within Israel's government. The majority of Haredim believe that Israel should be governed by halakha, or Jewish religious law. Also, most Haredim support gender segregation on public transportation and stricter, more selective standards for converts. Haredim are the fastest growing Jewish community in Israel today and are expected to make up more than 15% of the Israeli population by 2030. While Benjamin Netanyahu is a controversial figure in his own right, his coalition partners in the government are even more so. Itamar Gvir, Israel's new Minister of National Security, was convicted on charges of inciting racism and supporting terrorism. He is an admirer of Meir Kahane, a Jewish ultranationalist rabbi who founded a terrorist group called the Jewish Defense League. Gvir once had a portrait of Baruch Goldstein, a Jewish extremist who murdered 29 Palestinians in 1994, hanging in his living room. Also, Itamar Gvir believes that Israel should be governed by Jewish religious law. His recent appointment as head of Israel's police and border guards in the occupied West Bank understandably raises alarm bells. Bezalel Smotrich, Israel's new finance minister, has a track record similar to that of Itamar Gvir. Smotrich was recently heard saying that he could act against LGBT people in Israel without any repercussions from his voter base. 4 years before his first campaign for the Knesset, Smotrich was arrested on suspicion of organizing violent Jewish nationalist activity. In reference to Arabs in Israel, Smotrich stated during a session of the Knesset in October 2021 that, "You're here by mistake. It's a mistake that Ben-Gurion didn't finish the job and didn't throw you out in 1948. Earlier in 2021, Smotrich remarked that a gay pride parade in Tel Aviv was responsible for a surge in coronavirus cases. Avi Maoz, a far-right Knesset member, was given a position of authority over the Israeli education system. Maoz has railed against progressive values and supports the implementation of Jewish religious law in Israel. During a Knesset session, Maoz said, "The spirit that the Greeks and the Hellenists tried to instill in the Jewish people is the real darkness." Avi Maoz is in favor of rolling back legal protections for LGBTQ people and opposes women serving in the IDF. However, Maoz is experiencing blowback for his extreme views. A petition opposing Avi Maoz's appointment signed by over 300 school headmasters in Israel circulated, followed by the protests of several Israeli mayors. Since this coalition came to power, they have already taken steps toward carrying out the largest expulsion of Palestinians from the West Bank since 1967. Additionally, the coalition has drawn up plans to restrict the power of the Israeli judiciary. Human rights activists have argued that this attack on the courts could encourage authoritarian policies and put minority rights in grave danger. It is worth noting that the Kohelet Policy Forum, an Israeli right-wing think tank backed by American billionaires, played an important role in writing up the government's plan to reform the judiciary. In relation to the conflict with the Palestinians, the Netanyahu-led coalition is set to legalize the illegally built Jewish settlements in the West Bank. The United States is culpable for the current political situation. The US has continued to support Israel with military aid and has still not publicly condemned Netanyahu's new partners. Last year was the deadliest year for Palestinians residing in the West Bank since 2005. This past year also saw the most Palestinians placed in administrative detention. Shireen Abu Akleh, a journalist from Al Jazeera and a US citizen, was killed by Israeli forces in the West Bank. The ascension of this new government to power will only serve to exacerbate this issue. The state of Israel is currently going down a destructive path. Under the new Israeli government, Israel will look more and more like its illiberal neighbors instead of the progressive liberal democracies it is allied with. However, this new ruling coalition did not form out of thin air. Netanyahu's coalition is part of a long march rightward which had been taking place in Israel since the late 1970s, with the traditional voter base of Israel's right becoming a greater percentage of the Israeli population. The future of not only Israel, but the entire Middle East is in an even more precarious position. What do you guys think? Where do you see Israel in the next 5 to 10 years? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.